Before he died, Frederick Leighton became a baron of the British Empire, but he held the title for only one day. Yet the house he left behind tells a much longer story. Hidden on a quiet street in London is a palace filled with Middle Eastern tiles, golden domes, and rooms designed for the most powerful visitors of Victorian society. In this episode, we are stepping inside the extraordinary home of the only baron for a day. Welcome to one of London's most fascinating artist homes. This was the residence of Frederick Leighton, one of the most celebrated painters of the Victorian age. But this house has another unusual story. It wasn't built all at once. Over nearly 30 years, Leighton worked closely with the architect George Hutchinson to slowly expand it. What began as a simple red brick house gradually grew into something far more ambitious. Room by room, year after year, the home evolved almost like a long-running series. By the end of Leighton's life, it had become a home designed entirely around art. To live in a house like this, there were usually only two possibilities. You were either born wealthy or you became an exceptionally successful artist. Leighton was both. He was the son of a prosperous physician, which gave him the freedom to pursue art from a young age. But his later success was very much his own. By the late 19th century, a single painting could sell for around £3,000, the equivalent of decades of wages for an average worker. This house was not just a home, it was also a stage where visitors could step directly into his artistic world. Notice the color of the walls. This deep crimson was a dramatic choice for the Victorian period. Under candlelight, the entire room would glow with a warm, intense atmosphere. Leighton never married, but he was known for hosting elegant dinner parties. In Victorian London, the dining table was often more than a place for food. It was where artists, collectors, and aristocrats gathered to talk. Around this table, conversation were not just about art, but also reputation, opportunity, and future commissions. Leaving the dining room, a space built for social power, we entered the drawing room. In Victorian tradition, this was a withdrawing room where female guests would retreat after dinner. Ironically, despite being hung with impressive landscape by French and English masters, Leighton rarely used this space himself. It was less a living room and more a piece of social etiquette, the kind every proper Victorian mansion was expected to have. And that sense of formality creates a brief pause before we arrive at the most extraordinary room in the entire house. And then you step into this. The color hits you first. Deep peacock-blue tiles covering almost every surface. Most of them were bought from Damascus, collected by Leighton himself in the 19th century. And suddenly you're no longer in London. So why would the president of the Royal Academy of Art build something like this at the heart of Victorian Britain? The answer lies in the city outside these walls. 19th century's London, rapidly industrializing. Coal smoke, grey skies, a city defined by industry and expansion. For many artists, the cultures of Middle East represented something else entirely. Richer colors, extraordinary craftsmanship, and awards that felt distant from modern Britain. But for Leighton, this wasn't just inspiration. It was a statement, a place where he could conduct a different reality, one shaped by beauty, control, and imagination. There's even a statue of Narcissus here. In Greek mythology, Narcissus falls in love with his own reflection. Perhaps for Leighton, the story represented something else, a lifelong fascination with beauty itself. If you have made this far and haven't subscribed yet, now is a good time. It will help me keep sharing these hidden corners of the world. About a century and a half ago, visitors arriving at this house would slowly make their way up these stairs. With every step, they move a little closer to the world of Victorian high society. At the top were the elegant rooms where Leighton entertained his guests. Yet behind these grand spaces were quieter corners of the house, places that revealed something far more personal. The guest list here was extraordinary. Writers, collectors, aristocrats, and even Queen Victoria is said to have visited this very studio. Standing before these enormous canvases, visitors were no longer just inside an artist's workspace. They had stepped into one of the culture centers of Victorian London. This was where reputation was built and where influence quietly circulated. The studio was also Leighton's creative workshop. Its vast north-facing window provided a steady, diffuse light perfect for painting. Under this constant light, he created the figure that made him famous. Notice the small, almost hidden door. It was used by servants and models. In Leighton's world, beauty was carefully staged. Models would quietly enter through this door, only to reappear on canvas as mythological goddesses. Meanwhile, collector and aristocratic visitors arrived through the main entrance, often leaving with a painting that cost a small fortune. For more than 30 years, the house slowly evolved into a gallery in progress. At first, Leighton simply hung the work of friends besides his own paintings. Gradually, art spread across staircases and corridors until much of the house became part of the display. But these choices were never accidental. As president of the Royal Academy of Arts, Leighton was one of the most influential figures in the Victorian art world. To have a painting displayed here meant being part of a very exclusive artistic circle. The Silk Room was one of the final additions to the house. It was completed about 2 years before Leighton's death. Its walls were covered in deep green silk, transforming the room into a kind of private gallery. The paintings here were not ordinary works. They included pieces by European masters and some of the most respected artists of Leighton's own time. Through this collection, Leighton placed himself within a much larger artistic tradition. In many ways, this room feels like a quiet and carefully staged coronation at the end of his career. But when the guests had left and the lights were dimmed, Leighton returned to a room that feels surprisingly simple, his bedroom. Compared to the lavish spaces in the rest of the house, this room is almost monastic. A narrow single bed and very little decoration. Outside this room, he created a world of beauty and spectacle. Up here, life became remarkably simple. Perhaps for Leighton, the bedroom was simply a place where the mind could rest. There is a touch of irony in how his story ended. Leighton passed away the day after he was created a baron, which means he became the only peer in British history whose title lasted just a single day. It may sound like a tragedy, but in another sense, it almost feels like a perfectly timed curtain call. At the moment when fame, honor, and status reached their peak, his story came to an end. Yet, this house remains a reminder of how one person spent a lifetime building a world of his own. Leighton House may not be London's most famous historical building. Yet few places in the city combine Victorian opulence, artistic imagination, and a touch of exotic quite like this. Walking through these rooms, you're not just looking at decoration, you are seeing how a 19th century artist designed an entire world for himself. If you love travels filled with stories and history, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for coming along, and see you in the next one.